Trump showing up at the RNC, coming out a few days later, giving a speech in front of the entire world. Tens of millions of people tuned into that speech. I think it shows exactly who he is, and it showed that when he said fight, 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 that's exactly what he's going to do.
Right.
From just a few days later, fighting through that, bringing this country together, leading us out of that moment. For me, it shows why we need him back in office.
All right, guys, Tommy Pigott here today, and we just found out we're both from Jersey.
Yep, from New Jersey, northern New Jersey.
Jersey strong, man.
Yeah, best state in the union.
But now you're out here in Florida. When did you make the move?
Made the move just a little while ago for the Trump campaign.
Okay.
Basically, the RNC and Trump campaign, for all intents and purposes, merged together,
Nice.
hand in glove. So I was at the RNC before, and then when the Trump campaign, when President Trump became the official nominee, moved down here to help them with that process, work
Love
on
it.
their social media, other things like that. And so basically been a few months, but it's been awesome down here.
Great, man. The RNC looked phenomenal this year.
Yeah, I know. It was quite the event. I was in Milwaukee, and they really did up the whole thing. Just the infrastructure alone was really massive. There was 3 different venues that they had. They had a whole media row set up. They had the Pfizer Forum, obviously, with where the speeches were, and then they had a whole convention center with different events. Just the logistics of it alone were pretty incredible, and quite the atmosphere too. I mean, people were really motivated there.
Yeah.
They were very united. They were very motivated to save this country. You know, if you ever can go to a convention, I highly recommend it because it's very motivating. It's you kind of see from all parts of the country in one place why we're doing what we're doing, or from my perspective at least.
Absolutely, and the timing on that was crazy.
Yeah, I know. I mean, from the fact that you went from the assassination attempt on Saturday, just a few days later, President Trump showing up at the RNC, coming out a few days later, giving a speech in front of the entire world. Tens of millions of people tuned into that speech. I think it shows exactly who he is, and it showed that when he said fight, 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 that's exactly what he's going to do.
Right.
From just a few days later, fighting through that, bringing this country together, leading us out of that moment. For me, it shows why we need him back in office.
Absolutely. Yeah, people were surprised he made it out. They were saying he was going to cancel, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, there was some worry at first. You never know what's going to happen. I mean, for most of us, I think watching, the first instinct was fear.
Right.
You see what this is happening, what's going to happen here, what's the response? And I think while most people had the reaction of fear and uncertainty, President Trump's reaction was certainty. His reaction was to stand up and say, fight, fight, fight. And for his reaction to be that, and he was the one at the center of all of this, shows the calm under pressure, shows the leader he is, shows also that his first reaction wasn't for himself, it was for the American people. Because the reason why he did that was to signal to everyone there, to move forward, to signal to everyone there about America. I think it shows, again, why he is the leader we need back in the White House.
Absolutely. Now, I know we mentioned Jersey earlier. So were you Republican in Jersey? Because that's a Democrat state.
I was, yeah. I mean, it was one of these things. My family, Republican, grew up Republican, but a lot of Democrats in that state, obviously.
I didn't know a single Republican, to be honest, when I grew up there.
We opted, it's funny because we were just talking, not too far away, just a couple streets away. One of those things, though, that New Jersey would be the best state overall entirely if it just had better leadership.
Agreed.
So, you know, you look at the taxes that they have there.
Terrible.
You look at some of these cities that they have there, very poorly run, things like that. And it's kind of a shame because if you think about where New Jersey is, you got New York, Philadelphia, D.C., it's right in the center.
Right.
It should be this amazing land of opportunity, and it can be, but the Democrats are taxing it basically into oblivion, people leaving New Jersey. It's a real shame. So unfortunately, that's the case. Hopefully we can turn it around someday.
Dude, that's why I got out of there. What is it, 11% state tax there?
Yeah, I mean, plus the property tax. I mean, just think about like someone trying to start a family. You have the income tax plus a property tax. And most of the ways that people build wealth in this country is through home ownership. Unfortunately, that's going down under Kamala Harris and Joe Biden in terms of the expense to buy a home. But the property tax levels, the income tax levels, tax after tax after tax, driving businesses away. And again, it's right down the street from New York, Philadelphia, D.C. This should be where people want to locate, and they're literally forcing them away.
It should be. I hope it changes in our lifetime.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that's got to change sooner because of the whole work from home momentum. I mean, there's a bit going back and forth about how much people are working from home, things like that. But the fact that we have the technology now where people no longer have to live in New Jersey to commute to New York, that was the big advantage they had where we're from, people commuting to New York. The fact that that's no longer the case means that states like Florida that have economic policies that benefit people versus states like New Jersey that don't, that really is going to be this hard competitive advantage. And just one stat, if you look at the job creation we have seen over the last few years, it's been dominated by Republican-led states.
Really?
Something like 9 of the top 10 Republican-led states. which shows if the states are laboratories of democracy, if the Republican-led states are growing in GDP, job creation, and people moving there, that shows that those policies work and the Democrat policies don't. And unfortunately, one of the worst performing, New Jersey. And I think it's because of those policies.
Wow, I didn't know that. 9 out of 10.
Yeah, I mean, it's really astronomical. And it again shows like that clear contrast.
Yeah.
Because we often go back and forth about policies. Well, one of the best ways to do it would be, well, look at the states and what do the states do? What are they performing at? And the Republican-led states are performing way better economically across the board. And also people voting with their feet. I mean, we vote in elections, obviously, but people voting with their feet is a really powerful indicator of where they want to be and what policies are working.
Absolutely. How are you feeling leading up to this election with the chances of a Republican winning?
Well,
Trump, I guess.
We're feeling very positive. I mean, at the RNC and Trump campaign, we're pedal to the metal, taking nothing for granted. One of the things that we're always doing is playing like we're behind.
Yeah.
We believe we're ahead. We believe we have the momentum, but playing like we're behind, make sure that we're taking nothing for granted. We're building that unprecedented ground game. We're building an unprecedented election integrity operation. We're across every media platform possible, even the biased ones. And the biased ones, we're calling them out. We're making sure that we're putting them on notice that we know that they're biased and we're going to hold them accountable for it. So we have this momentum, and we think that when you look at the issues of who's trusted more on the economy, the border, foreign policy, President Trump leads on all of those. So.
Right.
Kamala Harris may have the mainstream media, Hollywood. President Trump has real Americans. And ultimately, when he's elected, that's who he's going to be answering to, the everyday Americans of this country.
Absolutely. Some of these polls are really strange to me. How accurate do you think some of these polls are?
Well, I think it really depends on their base level. So a lot of them have built-in assumptions in terms of weighting of ideology, weighting of demographics. It also depends on how the poll's conducted, whether it's phone, internet, whatever have you. That's why I think it's important to look at the trends of where those polls are going, and then also look at whether or not polls have been accurate in the past, right? So that's one of the big things, and there are ratings for polls out there, but that's why also looking at the trend, if the same poll has a movement in the same direction and multiple polls have a movement in the same direction, maybe that has more weight than an individual poll showing one thing. And that's not just a direction over 1 week, but looking over the course of many months. If we're seeing that voters prefer President Trump on the economy over 5, 6, 7 months, then you're pretty confident that's what voters think. It's not just a one-off poll. So, I think when looking at these polls, one of the things to keep in mind is those fundamentals, the fact that the fundamentals of this race favor President Trump. President Trump is speaking to real Americans, everyday Americans, Americans that really have a lot to lose or gain based off of who's president. And I think if you look at those polls, he's playing offense across the electoral map. And he's also got that momentum in a lot of the swing states.
Absolutely. Now I'm seeing a big problem with the border, and I know you talk about it a lot. People are basically hopping over, and now they're saying they'll be able to vote in this election. Is that true?
So not if the RNC and Trump campaign have anything to say about it. We're engaged in legal action across the country. There are examples in liberal jurisdictions where they're trying to get illegal immigrants to vote in these local elections. That's unacceptable. American elections should be decided by American citizens.
Right.
That used to not be controversial. Unfortunately, now it is controversial with today's Democrat Party. But we're engaged in legal action to stop that. That's part of that unprecedented election integrity operation. So we have those legal actions. We're close to 100 this cycle alone.
Damn.
Not just on that one issue, but many different issues in terms of safeguards. We're engaged in legal action on that issue, making sure that illegal immigrants don't vote in American elections. Again, it just seems outrageous to even say. And then we're building a poll observer and poll watcher program, 100,000 person strong, to make sure that we have eyes on the ground, that we're seeing every part of this process.
Right.
And then we can have a rapid response team that responds in real time and make sure that those concerns are resolved and resolved to the benefit of the American people.
I love it. How many people are coming across the border right now?
Well, I mean, it's an astronomical number. We've seen something like 10 million just since Kamala Harris and Joe Biden have taken office.
So many people.
Yeah, I mean, it's really, and the problem is that's even a conservative estimate because of this thing called gotaways. So we see these encounter numbers, which are usually what are reported. So you'll see 200,000 in a month, which is an astronomically high number. That doesn't include those that actually escaped into the country that weren't apprehended by Border Patrol.
Wow.
So you have one group of people that Border Patrol is encountering and apprehending and then releasing, oftentimes unvetted, into the country. Then you have a whole other group of called gotaways that are seen. You can see them, they're on camera, whatever it is. They cross the border and they escape into the country. We have no idea who they are, where they're going. And that number alone is close to 2 million under Joe Biden. 2 million people who have crossed the border. And what's concerning to me about that is that these are people that are purposefully evading law enforcement, even knowing they are highly likely to be released into the country if they're vetted at all. So these people are purposely evading law enforcement, knowing that even if they get apprehended, they can be released, which speaks to me that they're people that have a criminal record. They're people that have ties to terrorist organizations. They're members of cartels. You'd be naive not to assume that. And in fact, Border Patrol has been saying that the cartels have de facto control over much of our border, which is a huge national security threat when you think of all the terrorist cartels, gangs trying to enter our country.
I mean, just statistically, if that many people are getting in, a percentage of them are going to be criminals.
Yeah, and just think about how few it takes for people to actually do massive damage to this country. We've seen horrifying examples of attacks on U.S. soil done by just a few people. And we're talking about 2 million people, so even if just a handful of those people have ties. And we know actually there was a recent example of something like 400 people that were released into the country that had ties to an ISIS smuggling organization. Dozens of them were still at large in the United States because they were released and there's not really a way to track them. And again, those are those that were released. We're not even then talking about people that escaped past Border Patrol without being apprehended. It really is an astronomical number. And I think one of the other concerning parts of this is the terrorist angle, but also the fact that you have cartels and gangs from Venezuela and other countries that have set up nationwide operations in the United States because they're able to smuggle goods and drugs over the border, not just at the border, but all the way up to Montana, to Maine, to New Hampshire, and the entire way in between. I mean, those are the results of this open border.
It's that easy to get drugs in here right now?
Well, I mean, they're saying that they've apprehended something like 20 tons of fentanyl, but they're also saying that they've only apprehended something about 5 to 10% of the drugs that are getting in.
Oh my God.
So that's the going rate. I mean, there's estimates. I mean, and the basic bottom line of it is that we're seeing the results in the communities where we're having more people that are suffering from overdoses being poisoned by fentanyl than ever before.
Right. And
those drugs have a source, and that source is over the border, oftentimes with chemicals from communist China that are then shipped to the border and then smuggled over the border by the cartels. So they're estimating about 5 to 10% of the fentanyl that they're being able to capture. They're only capturing 5 to 10% of the total number that's crossing the border, which is just a huge amount of drugs coming over the border.
So many. And those are going to high schoolers, college kids.
Yeah, and then the problem is, too, is that you don't often know. So we're hearing all these examples where people don't know what they're buying. They're buying something and, they don't know. It could be labeled as a different drug. It could be labeled as something else. And then it goes from one person's hands to the next. I mean, it's really an insidious operation. And it really threatens kids, especially in high schoolers and teenagers. That's why one of the really disturbing statistics of this is from 18 to 45, the top killer in the United States are fentanyl overdoses.
Whoa.
More people, that's the highest rate in terms of people dying, fentanyl overdoses.
That's really scary.
I mean, and that has its roots right in the border because of that cartel smuggling operation over the border, those chemicals from communist China. And that's also one of the things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have refused to take action on. President Trump said to communist China, stop sending these chemicals to the cartels for them to be smuggled over the border. Joe Biden has refused to hold China accountable. He's refused to secure the border. Kamala Harris, as border czar, has refused to secure the border. And then we're seeing more people being poisoned by fentanyl in the United States than ever before.
I always wondered why they don't take the border seriously.
I mean, it's a question that really doesn't have a good answer because there's no reason why they should be acting like this, right? I try to hesitate to put motivations in people's minds. I'd rather deal with the facts and evidence on the ground. But if you're looking at why, I mean, is it because of the special interest groups? Is it because they don't care? Is it because they know that they have to be beholden to the far left, so they want to focus on other things? There's so many different reasons why none of them are good.
Yeah.
None of them are good. I mean, there's also the example of people on the left wanting illegal immigrants to vote, like we just were discussing. I mean, so that could be a reason. So there's so many reasons why none of them are good, and ultimately we just need a secure border. I mean, so you can kind of pick your reason, and none of them are justifiable for the destruction we're seeing because of Kamala Harris and her border czar policies.
Yeah, it doesn't seem worth it, man. Dude, I grew up left in Jersey, like everyone I knew was, and now it just seems like the left has gone so far out of what it used to be.
Yeah, I mean, I'm hearing that a lot from people that aren't saying, I believe the same things I always believed, but the Democrat Party left me. And you're hearing that from a lot of different people because it really is the case. I mean, you had the Democrat Party under Barack Obama, Hillary Clinton, who were saying that we need to secure the border. Right. That was a common bipartisan position. They weren't strong enough on the border. President Trump came in and solved those problems, but at least they believed that we should secure the border. Under Kamala Harris, that's gone completely out the window. She wants to decriminalize illegal border crossings. She wants to abolish ICE, which is the internal law enforcement agency. She wants to protect sanctuary cities, which means that cities don't cooperate with immigration authorities when illegal immigrants commit a crime in their jurisdiction.
Wow.
So I mean, really radical policies that don't protect Americans. They actually just protect the cartels. And one of the tragic parts about it as well is they don't protect illegal immigrants who are coming here for a better life, because that journey across the border is considered one of, if not the most dangerous migration route in the entire world by the United Nations, because of the number of people that die trying to cross the border because of the cartels. So their policies aren't compassionate to anyone except for the cartels. They hurt Americans. They hurt people trying to come here for a better life. We need a legal system, and we need to secure the border, and President Trump has plans to do just that.
I love that, yeah, because when he was president the first term, it was doing pretty well, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had at the end of his first term, the lowest border crossings, illegal border crossings that we've had in decades, in a generation. And it's because his policies worked. He instituted policies like Remain in Mexico. He built hundreds of miles of border wall. He made sure that Border Patrol and ICE had resources they need. He implemented policies that worked. And he also, because of pressure he put in place, got countries south of the border, Mexico and other countries, to cooperate when it comes to enforcing their own borders. So Mexico's southern border are helping us along their northern border, our southern border, in enforcement. So he got all of that done. And then Joe Biden and Kamala Harris come in and rip it all up. They completely reversed all those policies.
Crazy.
That's what's so tragic about it, is that we know what works. It's on the table. We just need a president with the courage and the strength to take those solutions. And the only one that's going to do that is President Trump.
I remember when he wanted to first build the wall, and he was getting so much pushback.
Yeah, I mean, it goes to how convincing and how right his policy positions were, where that was considered on the fringe. That was considered a crazy idea. And now that's supported by the majority of the American people. In fact, there was one recent post from the White House talking about how they were restarting building the border wall, even though they tried to block it for years, because even they were conceding that the law and the facts would compel them to. They're still trying to stymie as much as they can. But the point is that the fact that even many Democrats are saying, let's build the wall, shows that President Trump's solutions aren't out there. They're actually just common sense. The idea that walls work is common sense.
Yeah, it's crazy. Did they lock in a date yet for the debate?
So we had that first debate, President Trump having the best debate victory, the most dominating debate victory in history.
It wasn't even close.
I don't even think you could argue that based off the fact that his opponent and Joe Biden dropped out of the race because of that debate.
Even Democrats were saying Trump won.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing is, what was so ironic about that too is the White House was claiming that all of the videos that we were putting out from Trump campaign and the RNC were cheap fakes, is what they called them. That all the videos of Biden were these made up fake things, that he was actually with it behind the scenes. Then a few weeks later, we see with our own eyes on the debate stage, and also President Trump having command of the facts. So President Trump's come out and he has accepted a time with Fox News. Kamala Harris has been too afraid to accept that time. She's refused to accept that challenge. So we'll see if she does. We'll see if she actually decides to debate, go to Fox News and debate. We'll see, but right now she's the one that's sort of delaying that and refusing to debate.
I'd love to see it.
I mean, President Trump's a great debater. I mean, that was evidence. He's been a great debater so many times before. There's no one that debates quite like him. And he also has the facts on his side, which is always helpful when you're having a debate to have the truth and facts on your side.
I think it's needed, though, because people on the left are not seeing his side.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is that's part of the problem we have with big tech and the media and things. And that's why things like a debate or the rallies are so important, or his Truth Social posts, because they speak directly to the American people.
Absolutely.
So President Trump is there. He's ready to debate at Fox News in early September. We'll see if Kamala Harris accepts that. But you're right. I think Kamala Harris is too afraid to actually debate President Trump. And one of the interesting things is that she's been doing fewer interviews, fewer press conferences.
I've noticed that.
Yeah, I mean, it's just she's been hiding. And I think it's because last time she ran for president, 2019, it was the interviews and the press conferences that really sunk her campaign.
Oh, Tulsi destroyed her. Tulsi's coming on next week. Shout out to Tulsi.
Yeah, I mean, that was quite the moment. And it was a part of her record that she should have been ready to defend, because that was a main plank of her record, and she just wasn't. So we saw that in the Democrat primary debates, and we also saw that on interviews she had with CNN, MSNBC. She was asked basic questions like, how do you pay for a $93 trillion Green New Deal? The problem is there's no basic answer to that question because you can't. So that was one of the things that really sunk her campaign, because she was just unable to answer those questions. So I'd be surprised if she picks up that pace, because right now I think she's afraid to actually answer those questions. Yeah.
Did you find it odd that she was just given the spot?
Well, I mean, I think it shows that the Democrat primary and the Democrat Party is the anti-democracy party. They threw out 14 million of their own party's votes.
Wow.
And installed their own nominee. 5 or 6 people decided who the rest of the party was going to support in terms of their nominee. And then they have the audacity to go out there and claim they're the party of democracy when they're anything but. I mean, that's not democracy. That's the opposite of democracy. So I'm not surprised Democrats reacted the way they did to the debate, because the debate with Joe Biden was so terrible for Joe Biden. But I think it shows all of their talk about being the so-called party of democracy, they're anything but.
Yeah, they should have given other people a chance at least.
Yeah, I mean, and also, I mean, the primary voted. I mean, you could argue that the primary was rigged for Joe Biden. I think there was a lot of evidence that they did everything they could to protect Joe Biden, but that's on them.
Right.
They're the ones that set up their own primary system. They're the ones that decided months ago, when people were first raising these alarms, to not bring them up. And one of the people most central to that cover-up was Kamala Harris.
Wow.
She was claiming for months that she spends many times with the president. She's right there with Joe Biden all the time. Seeing him up close, she went out and said that the special counsel's report that called him an elderly, aging old man, she said that was false, that was basically slander, to paraphrase what she said. She was central to that cover-up. So I don't think they get a pass for installing Kamala Harris, because Kamala Harris was one of the people that was covering up for this obvious cognitive decline happening in front of all of our eyes. So to kind of summarize what they did, they protected Joe Biden. Kamala Harris covered up for Joe Biden. Then they threw out 14 million of their own primary votes and installed Kamala Harris as their nominee without winning a single primary vote. I mean, that's a cover-up, that's a scandal, that's anti-democratic. I think it's the last thing the American people want.
Yeah, crazy. She knew, and a lot of people at the White House knew. He had a doctor coming every month, right?
Yeah, I mean, like, there are so many reports, and the reports that they can't really answer or give basic answers to, because they can't really respond to why XYZ doctor was there or what was going on there, because it shows the fact that they were cover-ups. They've never apologized for their cheap fakes hoax that they pushed on everybody, claiming that all those videos of Biden getting lost were fake. When we all saw it with our own eyes. It was official media streams, and they were claiming, don't believe your lying eyes. Kamala Harris has never apologized for claiming that Joe Biden was up for the job, or that claiming repeatedly that she would tell people if he wasn't. She promised she would tell people if Joe Biden was not up for the job, and she didn't. She didn't tell people, and she has yet to answer a single question about that. And I think ultimately it's a question of national security. This is a question beyond just Joe Biden. We need a president, according to his own staff. Joe Biden was unable to operate outside of the hours of 10 and 4. Those were the only hours he was able to operate.
Wow.
That's not what the president needs to be able to do. The president needs to be able to answer a 3 a.m. phone call. That's national security ramifications. And so if Kamala Harris and others, and the evidence suggests they did, put their own political self-interests above national security, I think that shows that they've disqualified themselves, and Kamala Harris specifically, from being president, because it shows that she puts herself first and the American people last.
Absolutely. If you're only working 10 to 4, what if there's a really important call at 5?
Yeah, it's the hardest job in the world, or one of them at least, if not the hardest, right? And the national security ramifications, just think of the time zone difference. You know, Iran does not have the same time zone as the United States, so they decide to launch a missile at us in the middle of the day. I mean, God forbid that happens, but you need the president that's able to be prepared for that. Think of JFK with the Cuban Missile Crisis. Reports that he was up for days and days and days on end handling that crisis. Joe Biden, unable to operate outside of 10 to 4, he would not be able to handle that crisis.
Yeah, that's the president right there.
Yeah, I mean, and that is a real national security crisis, and Kamala Harris actively contributed to it.
Crazy, man. How'd you get involved with the Trump campaign?
Well, so the movement from the RNC to the Trump campaign was part of that movement to make sure that we were working hand in glove. I've been at the RNC for many, many years, working in their communications rapid response shop, was in their DC headquarters doing that. And then when President Trump became the official nominee, we made sure that we were basically one and the same, all swimming the same direction. Like I said, working hand in glove, came down to West Palm Beach. It's been an honor to do it. It's been a real privilege. And it's been a real honor to speak to everyday Americans that are so motivated to help the Trump campaign win, because it really is a grassroots movement. It's not about select groups of people. It's about everybody in this country coming together in this movement to save America.
I love it. JD Vance.
Yeah, no, fantastic.
Yeah. What do you think of that? Because he wasn't favored.
Yeah, I mean, there's rumors going around. He was probably one, maybe if you want to call him third in terms of the favorability rankings.
People could bet on it. I remember he was like 1 out of 9 chance or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, he's just such a fantastic pick. I think one of the defining images of this campaign is going to be the East Palestine, Ohio toxic train derailment. You had President Trump go into East Palestine, Ohio, just days after, to stand there with JD Vance, to talk about people, to talk about what those people need there, to make sure that they know that their government hears them. And Kamala Harris and Joe Biden took over a year to go. I actually don't even think Kamala Harris ever went, but Joe Biden took over a year to go. And that shows where their priorities lie. It's not with the forgotten men and women of this country. And by picking JD Vance, President Trump has reaffirmed that when he says the forgotten men and women of this country are going to be forgotten no longer, he means it. He means it. He picks someone who has been fighting for the forgotten men and women of Ohio, of Kentucky, of the entire region, his entire life. And that's going to continue when President Trump and future Vice President JD Vance are in the White House. I
love it. Did your opinion of the Secret Service change after the incident?
Well, I think one of the things that has to be said is the bravery of those that ran forward and shielded President Trump. I mean, that was real bravery for those agents. That never should have happened in terms of them being put in that position. Those agents never should have been put in that position. President Trump should have never been put in that position. We saw a lot of really reasonable and important questions being asked by Congress. There is going to be that investigation to make sure we get to the facts. And that's what needs to happen. What happened on that Saturday should never have happened. It never should happen again. And President Trump has commented on how he's seen some changes in the Secret Service that he's happy with. He's committed to still having those outdoor rallies, which he is so famous for. Yeah, so he's going to keep on going and talking to the American people. I think we need those answers. The congressional investigation is so important on that. They're really taking the lead on making sure that we get those answers because, like I said, what happened should never happen again. There needs to be able to have those rallies and have everyone be safe at them.
Yeah, I think they're needed because Vivek wants to get rid of these agencies, but I think, we need some sort of protection.
Well, I think it's ultimately just about making sure the protection's efficient and making sure we have those answers. I mean, there's a lot of really important questions, a lot of mistakes that seem to be made, and understanding why they were made, understanding how that was allowed to happen. Really, we need to get to the bottom of that. We need to get to the bottom of that for people that are protected by the Secret Service, but also for those brave Secret Service agents that went forward and used their bodies to shield President Trump. That was really brave of those Secret Service agents, and there was some failure that made that happen, that put everyone in that position, and it should never happen again.
Yeah. Were you at the rally when that happened?
I was not at the rally. I was in West Palm Beach, but it was one of those things where you were seeing it, and like I said before, watching and just horrified and afraid and frightened, and that's when President Trump standing up and saying fight, fight, fight was so important. It was a signal to everybody at the rally, but I think across the entire world, an image of American strength, of American unity, and of making sure we're looking forward and moving forward as a country.
That might have been the greatest moment of all time I've ever witnessed.
I mean, it just was astonishing, and it showed again that his first thought is for the American people. It's not for himself. It's not for his own safety. It is and has always been for the American people, making sure that we're strong, we're unified, we're moving forward. And that image of him holding his fist with the American flag in the background, I think it really encapsulated that. It showed who President Trump is as a leader. And talk about being calm in a crisis. For him to have the presence of mind to say, this is what I need to do to signal to America. Very strong moment. And that's what we need in a president for when we have that 3 a.m. phone call. We have that crisis. We need a president with the clarity of mind to know exactly what he needs to do to make sure the American people are in the best position possible.
Iconic. It was all over social media, and I want to talk about young voters because it seems like they're increasing, pretty steadily.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we saw in terms of being on social media is big tech. There have been reported biases of them trying to censor the image. Of course, we're going to hold them accountable for that because that is a major way that young voters get a lot of their news. That's unacceptable that they'd be censoring those images. I think they're partially censoring it because it is an image of American strength and shows who President Trump is, and a lot of liberals are trying to hide that. Of course, social media is the main way that we're communicating with all these young voters, and it also shows the growing power of alternative media platforms. We have this censorship on the mainstream media. We have the censorship on these fake news media, liberal establishment media. We have these alternative sources where we can get this message out there, whether it's President Trump's Truth Social account, whether it's on other streaming platforms. It's a new generation of media that is reaching that new generation, and being part of that, being ahead of where the trend is, hopefully, so you're already there when people show up, is really important to making sure we're reaching as many voters as possible.
Absolutely. As we're filming this, Trump is live with Aiden Ross with 600,000 viewers.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of his effort to reach as many people as possible. He's bringing in people that maybe haven't been part of the political conversation before, but this affects everybody, and I think people are really responding to that. We saw him have the most successful launch on TikTok of any political candidate or political figure in history, in the history of TikTok, dramatically dwarfing what we saw from Joe Biden's account. I don't know if Kamala actually even has an account on TikTok.
I think she started one.
So the Joe Biden account dramatically dwarfed, and President Trump, we're seeing hundreds of millions, if not billions of views on his videos. Really a huge, huge enthusiasm for President Trump. And again, that shows him trying to be at these platforms before people even expect him to be. So he's already there when people go looking for that information.
We got to get him back on Twitter, man. I remember his Twitter the first term.
Well, I think his Truth Social is pretty amazing too. So we'll see. I'll leave that up to him, obviously, if he wants to return back to X/Twitter. But no, his Truth Social is pretty amazing. So,
well, there's an account on Twitter that just posts his Truth Social tweets, actually.
Yeah, I've seen that too, and it's there's so much interaction with those posts. He has such a way of putting things in a way that's funny, it's clever, it's to the point, and oftentimes it's a response that the Democrats can't respond to.
Yeah,
they go in total meltdown.
Yeah, it's too blunt for some of them.
Yeah, I think that's a good test, is if they're in a meltdown mode about something as opposed to actually even talking about what he said. It shows that he's right on point, I think. So
certain people you can't even converse with.
Yeah, no, it's a shame. And it's encouraged by the censorship as well, I think, because these alternative media platforms, when you get these voices on there, it encourages conversation, dialogue. People get to see things they don't see. People are encouraged to get information for themselves. That's the exact opposite what the liberal media wants you to do. And I think if the Democrats and liberal media don't want you going out and trying to research and get information for yourself, that's a red flag.
When Google censored the assassination, I was like, what the heck?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that what came up was the assassination attempt of President Truman. I mean, if it's done by what people are searching, I can guarantee you that more people were searching for President Trump in that instance than President Truman. I mean, it's not even close. Yeah. So it really was astonishing. I mean, that's part of why we're seeing other even search algorithms come up. And I think this is something with AI as well, because we saw it with Google in terms of censoring the auto-populated search results. But we saw it with AI, Meta's AI, even calling the assassination attempt against President Trump fake.
Wow.
Was fictitious event is what they called it.
Meta's AI?
Yeah, that's what they called it.
Oh my God.
So Facebook came out, Meta came out and said, that's a mistake, we didn't mean to, but that's unacceptable.
Yeah.
What inputs are you putting into that AI? What code goes into that AI? Why is that the first reaction? And it wasn't just that it had this alternate view of reality. The answer said that President Trump's assassination attempt was a fictitious event and that Kamala Harris's campaign for president was very real.
Wow.
So you not only had it being incorrect, but I could almost see maybe it thought it was in this weird parallel universe. Maybe something was just completely wrong. But no, they were presenting this alternative universe that suppressed the assassination attempt and those looking for information on it about President Trump, and then they were promoting Kamala Harris at the same time.
There were some outlets that said it wasn't even a bullet, remember?
Yeah, I mean, which is just, it's crazy. I mean, we all saw it with our own eyes. I mean, the left has no low when it comes to trying to make up information and then accuse the other side of making up information.
Right.
It's part of this whole pattern with them that they are usually what they're accusing you of, and it just takes a few weeks to realize the full extent of it. I do think if anyone that's supporting censorship and, again, not encouraging people to go find their own information, that's a red flag, because why would they be afraid of information?
Yeah.
And they're afraid of information because it doesn't support their narrative.
I find myself holding back some of my takes because all these platforms are owned by the left. All these social media platforms. And if I go too far out, they'll like shadow ban me or delete the post.
I mean, it's something that's outrageous that we even have to think about. And if they're going to be the proponents of the new town square, which is kind of what they want to position themselves as, and that comes with a responsibility. And that's part of what we saw with the Facebook files, the Twitter files before Elon Musk took over as well.
Oh, those are bad.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of censoring we saw there was really astonishing. And like you mentioned, the shadow banning, it's not even as obvious as censorship. You might even just think that your content's not performing as well. Like little things like that are really hard to pick up on. Google, we also had this instance with Google, beyond just the auto-populated search results, where you had Google in one example that was really suppressing conservative emails to people. It was sending a huge amount of conservative emails and Republican emails to spam.
Holy crap.
While the Democrat emails were going to the inboxes.
No way.
And they claimed that it was, just because of what people were marking them. But if you looked at it, there was no way that was the case, based off of the percentage of emails being sent to spam and also the time frame. It was always right at the end of the month.
Wow.
Which is always, when you think about fundraising, is always a very important time at the end of the month to make sure, I mean, it's all important, but an important time at the end of the month to make sure you're ending on a hot streak. And that suppression of emails, which was very well documented by university studies, was another example of the censorship that we're seeing. Again, Google claimed to have a reasonable reason for it. I have yet to see that reasonable reason, and especially when added upon this pattern, it really paints a disturbing picture. It's
scary because you could subconsciously program thoughts into people and basically tell them who to vote for. Yeah, and then think about those emails as well, where those are communications aspects. Those are also fundraising aspects in terms of wanting people to donate, but also getting your message out there. So it's a 1-2 punch in a lot of ways. So I mean, that was an important example of this discrepancy that at the very least we're seeing how liberals and conservatives are being treated. At the very least, this discrepancy exists. Every single time they try to claim it was a mistake, there's a reason for it, but it always errs on one side of the scale. It always leans towards suppressing conservatives and Republicans. At a certain point, that can't be a coincidence. And if it is a coincidence, they need to figure out that code because there's something fundamentally wrong with it. We need an investigation into Google, man. Well, I mean, I think that's part of the congressional investigations as well. Why we talk about the presidency so much, and it is incredibly important, but having those House Republicans in there, retaking the Senate for the Republicans as well is so important because they can do these investigations. They can make sure that we're getting to the facts of this. They can do subpoenas and bring people. Think about the universities, for example, Elise Stefanik holding university presidents accountable. That was possible because of the subpoena power of the majority. Got it. And being able to subpoena people and get documents, get information, and having all of those allies on your side is really important. So we must win back the White House, but we also need to make sure that we have a Republican House and a Republican Senate because they do all these investigations. They pass that legislation, obviously, but those investigations and that accountability, that oversight is so important. Absolutely. Let's end off with the economy because usually leading up to an election, the economy's pumping, but what's going on lately? Well, the economy is not doing well. I mean, it's Kamalanomics is what we're calling it, based off of Bidenomics, and it's really the exact same agenda. It's
really terrible. She was the deciding vote for the inflation fueling spending back in March 2021. For those that don't remember, that was $1.9 trillion that was pumped into the economy. She was the deciding tie-breaking vote as the vice president. There were liberal economists from the Obama administration, from the Clinton administration, who were saying this is going to cause inflation. They didn't listen to them, and they passed it anyway. Since she passed that, prices are up 20% since she passed that bill. The next deciding vote that she had on the economy was this Inflation Reduction Act. It's a scam bill. They called it that. In reality, it just raised the tax burden on the middle class. And it made it so that the taxes that people are paying that are making as little as $20,000 a year are going up. She was the deciding vote for that as well. So we've seen under their administration, prices up 20.1%. We've seen the tax burden increase. And now we're seeing the markets in turmoil, as we're speaking now, the market crashing. We're seeing interest rates at their highest levels in 22 years, which means it's harder to buy a home, buy a car, start a family. I mean, this is the impact of Kamalanomics. And the most disturbing part of it all is she doesn't even recognize her mistake. She wants to double down on the exact same policies that got us into this situation, which for those that are just leaving college, those that are trying to start a family, that means if she were elected, 4 more years of life delayed. 4 more years of an economy where prices are rising, you can't buy a home, interest rates are up, and the market's in turmoil. I don't think anyone can afford that.
Crazy. Yeah. There's a viral video right now. This guy ordered on Walmart 3 years ago, $167. There's a reorder button, and it was $400.
It's just crazy. It's just crazy.
So it got so viral that Walmart and Amazon had to remove the reorder button. Because people are like seeing the inflation
yeah, I mean, right in front of their eyes.
Right in front of their eyes.
I mean, I think that's the problem they have with the censorship when it ultimately comes down to it, is that people, when they go to the grocery store and the gas station, can see it.
Yep.
And Kamala's going out there and saying that prices are down. Prices are not down in any universe. She's going out there saying wages are up. Wages are not up in any universe. And she's saying gas prices are down.
Hell no.
I mean, I don't know where she's getting these stats, but it's clear for anyone going to the gas station anywhere. That's not the case.
No.
It really is. I don't really quite understand who's telling her to say that, but then I think about what their message would be. And they can't really run on anything economically because it's been such a failure across the board.
It's so bad. I go to Costco and Whole Foods now, and I know I'm spending hundreds.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of money that you have to spend for basic necessities like groceries. And that's also one of the worst things about this inflation, is that it is primarily amongst things like groceries, energy, electricity, and rent, things you have to buy. So oftentimes you see when there's an economic downturn, this flight from luxury. Basically, you don't buy as many of the expensive goods and you buy more of what you need to survive. With this inflation, you're actually seeing the highest price increases amongst what you need to survive. That rent, food, gas, electricity. So people that are hit the most by this are those that can least afford it.
Right.
So we're seeing grocery prices up close to 25 to 30%. I mean, that's something that average family cannot sustain. So it's really hitting people, and there's nothing they can substitute it for. You can't not buy food. So you're forced to buy these higher prices again and again and again, and it's having this compounding effect where you're having less money saved, you're having less ability to save for the future, which means that next year you're going to be in the same position, in a worse position, a worse position. And so every single year that this goes on, the worse and worse it gets.
Absolutely. Tommy, it's been really educational and informative. Where can people find you and keep up with you?
At Tommy Pigott on X, on Instagram, and they should go to @RNC Research, @Trump War Room. Those are our rapid response accounts. They're holding Joe Biden, Kamala Harris now accountable every single day.
We'll link it below. Thanks for coming on,
Great.
Tommy.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. As always, see you next time.